All right, what it is. What it is. No. Anyway, in all seriousness, what's going on? How are we all? Are we all feeling good? Are we feeling happy? Are we feeling safe? Are we feeling like we matter in the world, like we are significant, and like our actions are significant? The things that we do, the things that we say, and the things that we think, are they significant? Um, yes, of course. Everything there is a lot of things that hold significance, and significance is different to importance. Um, I'll be the first to always say that nothing's necessarily important. You're not important. I'm not important, but we are significant. It's those little differences between words that matter. So yes, the things we do, or well, our thoughts, words, and deeds, the things we think, the things that we say, and the things that we do do matter. They are significant, and they do have an incredible impact on the world around us. And I think it's important to really put that under the microscope, really try and analyze some of our everyday data, our personal data, and look at how we're thinking. What is our thought process? What is our mental state at any given moment in time? Really stopping and analyzing that and seeing, if it aligns to where you want to be. Um, does how you feel, your state of mind, your state of being, does that reflect where you feel you should be in life, what you should be doing, personally? Do you feel that you are living within that, moral compass? Are you upholding, you know, universally applicable values, not just your own values? We talk a little bit more about the difference between those moral virtues that are, objectively moral values that we should strive towards, and the things that are just personal values that are shaped often by false beliefs and false knowledge, or if it's false knowledge, it's not true knowledge. Um, so, really putting those things under the microscope and trying to identify where did it go wrong? If things are not right, or if you don't feel like your mental images that you're creating, or the things that you're thinking are not in line with where you feel you should be or what you should be doing, why aren't they? How did it get that way? And what are things we can do to try and move, away from? I don't like the word negative. I don't like the word positive. Because I believe that the word negative seems to always come with bad connotations when the word negative is not a bad word. So, you know, and then terms like good and evil have their faults as well. But moral and immoral, so morality and immorality, have a definite meaning that can be applied pretty broadly to what we're going to talk about. So, what we are talking about is, where are you at? Ask the question. Because if we can understand, um, if we can understand what is truly moral, what action constitutes a moral action, and what constitutes an immoral action. Now, definitively, a moral action would be an action that does not cause harm to another, and I would add on, and does not cause harm to yourself. Um, so there's a multitude of immoral actions that are objectively immoral, that lead to more immorality in the world. And as I've said in a previous video today, in fact, this morning I mentioned, what Mark Passio talks about, the law of freedom. So morality increases, freedom increases. If morality declines, then freedom declines. And so, you know, that has to be seen as moral action. Our moral and immoral actions are accumulative karmically. They are links in a chain of causality. Um, as we live more moral lives, as we are more moral towards others and towards ourselves, that is, that ultimate eighth principle, if you like, or that there's the ultimate concept or principle law of care, a law of self care, not just self preservation, because often self preservation is, attained or maintained through immoral action rather than moral action. So, yeah, pretty big things that we're talking about, fairly lofty concepts as well, because obviously, growing up in the education system that we've got, not just in my country here in Australia, but across, around the world, we have an education system hell bent on indoctrinating its children into the status quo. So we don't really have an education system. What we have is a system of behavioral modification where, children come in and the undesirables get spat out somewhere along the way, and the people that are, the compliant ones, the ones who follow the system to the letter, get spat out the other end as model citizens sculpted into these mindless drones incapable of true critical thought and true objective thinking, because we're to it's not a word, I don't think. Um, so correct me, but we have been like massively subjectivized. Um, like suppressed, and everything that we do seems to be subjective, and so we've ended up with that old moral relativism. Yeah, moral relativism that has led to people having like the belief that morals are a subjective thing dependent on, you know race, creed, time, location, space, and it's just simply not true. The moral laws, or the laws of morality in the universe, natural law has always governed morality, and to live in accordance with natural law, i.e., the immutable laws of nature that are not man-made. Um, you know, that's objective. That has not changed since the dawn and the beginning of time. These laws have been the same, so they're unalterable. You know, try as we might to fashion it into a world where these laws are manufactured by a select, very small percentage of ruling elites, does not make it doesn't make that a truth, and it certainly doesn't make their laws moral. They are not necessarily morally correct. What we have is a whole bunch of immoral laws masquerading as the pinnacle of moral virtue, and it's simply not true and ludicrous when put under the microscope. And the problem is, because of our, horrible system of indoctrination, most people are incapable of seeing that these laws are in fact immoral and inherently wrong. Um, laws around taxation, laws around licensing and restrictions and things like that, that impose on a person a limitation that is not imposed on them in the natural world. That there is these sort of limitations there. Now, of course, not to get into it too much, and I think you're better off, maybe going to someone like Russell Brand, or even like Joe Rogan's podcasts and stuff like that have some really good material. But especially when we're talking about, like, if we're talking about the Davos um, initiative or agenda. Um, and for those of you who don't know what Davos is, go look into it yourselves, because I'm not the best person to actually educate you on that. But I mean, more or less, it is uh, sort of an organisation or an event, you know, headed essentially by Klaus Schwab, and we've got these pinnacle elite figures attending that under the guise of philanthropic work to try and better the world, to create this sustainable future. Um, which is a whole nother topic altogether. The only reason I bring it up is because obviously, if we're talking about immoral people and immoral actions and the people that impose them, they're sort of the some of the key figures to look at, attend that conference. And yeah, so where were we? We were talking this morning. I said I'd do a follow up. We talked a little bit about demonic entities. I didn't get a chance to talk about, my views on that, or how, maybe more importantly, my experience dealing with, demonic entities, demons, and that started very young for me. So I started working with Western magic, or now, at that time, it was probably not so much when I was a kid, but it was my first sort of connection to Western magic, was working with some of the more exoteric books on magic and more, fluffery books on to do with Merlin the magician, and the Grail mysteries. And then, long story short, I started looking at some of these books, and in a lot of these witchcraft books and stuff like that, you start to work, there's demon summoning and all that sort of stuff. So I played around with a little bit of that when I was a kid. Obviously, great imaginations. Um, Children are essentially mental portals. Like, they're so open to any possibility, and their ability to open up portals is unsurmounted by, adults don't do it to half the degree that a child can, and what children can bring through into the world, which comes back to being how important it is to teach true morality and to help children and guide them towards truth and away from, this false world that we are. Because what essentially is being done is all these kids growing up are opening up some horrifying portals into all these different dimensions that are, to put it lightly, are pretty hairy dimensions to be involved with, because they're non-compatible with our human world. So the human realm of existence and how we're able to perceive the world, and then these other demonic realms that open up largely by children, I would say, are, you know, they're just not a compatible thing, and that in itself is not sustainable. Um, yeah, so my experience with them was I tried with summoning and had, fairly lucrative success in my younger years, so my younger teens and stuff like that. And now it took a lot of therapy and work with sages and, other Western occultists to sort of, you know, get me back on track from that and sort of get rid of some of these demonic entities that I had called through. Now, these entities, like I said in the earlier video, not inherently evil, but they do, they feed on things like fear and confusion that attracts them in, because you open yourself up. The science behind it is very complex, and we can go into more detail on how I am able to understand how we attract these beings in. I've got about a minute left of video time because YouTube, I've got to try and work that out. I'm not really good with it, but it's only giving me 15 minutes. So yeah, I tried that then. And then later in life, after I stayed right away from any occult material magic till probably my early 20s, when I was reintroduced, through drugs and alcohol to that world again. I'd sort of opened up other portals, and yeah, had a, pretty intense encounter with a demonic entity, that happened to present itself in a physical manifestation, which I had actually to that point not seen. Um, anyway, that led me on a whole nother spirit quest, spirit journey. I ended up doing some hardcore spiritual work, and then I got to where I am now. Anyway, so that is my basics on sort of a little talk on morality. Look, we can continue more in the next video. I'm going to move on straight to that, but for now, um, take care, peace profound, and, as always, fraternally yours in Lux.